way out. Sorry, I was listening to Missing Persons before I did this.
Good stuff.
Fucking band, man. We are leaping into the void because the void is the place to leap in. It's Saturday morning. Welcome. This is the Art of Rock. Every Saturday we are here. You know what? First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the Tonga people as the traditional landowners of Los Angeles, where I am now. This is the Art of Rock. Every Saturday morning we are here. Join us. I think the place to join us is the Twitch. Blah, blah, blah. Go to the Twitch. This is made possible by, and like the Twitch and follow the Twitch and do all that stuff. This is made possible with Angelspit's Patreon. And I thank you guys. Thank you so much for being part of it. I'm increasingly trying to make Patreon content free because I think a lot of people are going through hardships and I don't think you need to pay for inspiration. But if you want to throw me a tip, you can do it for like $3 a month and you get a track. And there's different things and stuff. Another great place to hang out and listen to Sounds and Shadows. It's a Facebook group for the darkly minded people who want to talk about music and stuff. And that Sounds and Shadows, it's right there. Angelspit's / Ice Planet 9000 album is there. It's the new thing and it's been out a while. And I've actually done number 3, which I'm now putting onto the Patreon so you can get a sneak peek of that. And also the Patreon's like had about 8 of the new Angelspit tracks off the new album that you haven't heard yet, which is affectionately called 12, because I can't say 12 funny because I've got an accent. The Industrial Incisions playlist is there. Raziel, I added your tracks. I'm still waiting for yours. Still waiting for yours, Alex. Pleasure. And it's a whole bunch of old industrial stuff and new industrial stuff. And I want you to go there. I want you to like it. I want you to follow it. If you listen to that every week, you would really help people with getting their music out on Spotify. Another place to listen to music to get it out to, Spider Goat, welcome, is MTV TV. And after this, we're going to raid there because it's the best. If you've got a video, send them the video on that email and they will play it. They're going to help you find an audience. And if you're looking for new bands, you are going to meet so many new bands. And Diana, we're sending you our love. You're not on yet, which is interesting. MTV TV have also got a Patreon. It's right there. Go and grab it. It's mighty fine stuff. And because we got to keep them going. So I think it's about $5 a month. You can help keep them going. And I want a shout out and a thank you to Raziel, who is my illustrious co-host.
Thank you.
And Rezi's got the You Shriek YouTube. Rezi's also got a Patreon, and Rezi's also got a bitchin' Bandcamp. That go listen to that.
I park it next to my bitchin' Camaro.
All right. I park mine next to my bitchin' scooter. Okay. Rezi, you had a very interesting question.
I don't even know if it's a question, but it is a thought. And the thought centers around how we can keep our skills and develop our skills for guarding our creative time, with respect for the constant attention that the rest of the world certainly demands, and, keeping a life that isn't totally cloistered and isolated, unless that's what you're going for. But yeah, balance, like protecting your creative time, I think. It's a lot of distractions, I think, in the world.
Do you want to start on this? Brett, welcome, by the way.
Do I want to start? I want to start by saying it's hard to balance things that fly up in your face with an alert, with urgency, with other people's requirements and, attitude. I find myself very susceptible to other people's attitudes, as a matter of fact. Like how strongly somebody comes in with a demand for time influences me immediately. So maybe other people take it differently. I don't have answers. I just have complaints in this regard, I think is what I'm saying.
Okay. I can definitely shoot my mouth off about that. Brett, welcome and thank you again. Okay, so my thoughts on this are Hold on, I'm trying to stream to bloody yeah.
You keep streaming. I'll keep complaining about
Okay.
having a work-life balance or something.
I think we're actually live. All right. So what I
Go
do,
ahead.
the part of the reason I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I thank Frank for helping me do that, is I there's not a lot of distractions then. And if I can look at the maths, and this is what's really interesting for me, is that if I only have an hour ago, oh, it's not enough time to make music. It is. Stop being a bitch, Carl. I won't turn gear on, because if I'm going to have gear on, I like to have it running for like 2 hours minimum, because I got to get into it. I got to get into the zone, butter. But it's definitely enough time to pick on a mix. It's definitely enough time to sit down and work on lyrics. It's definitely enough time to sit a microphone on your lap and work out lyrics and see how they fit. That, I think, is the reason I can get done what I get done. That's the time element, and not everybody is blessed with that, because Frank. And Frank's another interesting one, because he'll demand play, and if he doesn't get play, and I do love this about him. Yes, that's right. I'm talking about you. He will jump on my gear, and he will fuck shit up. So he demands it. Just like wife, children, dogs, etc. Husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, people, humans. The thing that really gets me is adding to this confusion mush is my brain, and my brain getting unmotivated. And like I am addicted to the internet. It has an extremely negative impact on me. And Frank is right now. Here he goes. There he is. He's on the Moog screaming for attention right now, which is why I put so much stuff on top of the Moog so you won't wreck it. All 13 pounds of Frank.
Have you tried minty things? Like,
no, I was going to actually put like so they don't like mint.
Jojo can't stand it. She'll just walk away from this chapstick. I'll just be like, oh no, there's an open chapstick on the synthesizer. And she's just like, yeah, I'm not going to go over there anymore.
I'm making a note of this. This is now Art of Cat.
I hope it's not abusive or dangerous for cats. She doesn't eat it ever. She just walks away. So
okay, I'll look into this. I was going to put tin foil down on top.
Sometimes some cats hate it, some don't. Yeah.
So I might see if I can get some spray version of it. But anyway, yeah, my problem is that's right, Frank. My problem is trying to get motivated. And which is a great thing about Frank, who is, that's right. That's an EMAX, Frank, not a table. The great thing about Frank is that Frank pulls me away from these things, and helps me reprogram my brain to go, okay, we're going to go and do music now with Frank's blessing. What is anybody else's thoughts on this?
I'll paint a little bit of a contrast in that I think part of what I remember is in your answers, you've said it before about being able to change modes and get into a task that's kind of short and like switch contexts more easily than some people. I know I have a lot of trouble with a project that looks like it's only going to be 5 minutes. For whatever reason, that doesn't have the same weight as an email from a client that says, I need this now. That thing's going to take an hour and I won't get into the studio and I miss a rehearsal or something, or totally change my plans. But oh my God, the allure of that urgency. Whereas my own plans, even though it was a short task, it was manageable, don't have the same weight. I would like to practice that, doing smaller tasks and jumping in and out of things, like playing half a song on guitar rather than drilling for an hour or two on, just a passage. So taking it into consideration.
Man, I'm really feeling your pain. Alex, talk to me.
Yeah, I really, I also have the problem with larger gear setups that I can't just do it for an hour, but usually if it's just one machine, I use the time to make patches or to just do something at one thing. And the good thing with software is that it's like easily opened, and it doesn't need to warm up and such.
Well, one of the things I'm hearing from both of you, correct me if I'm wrong and give me some more details, is it's not such a challenge to have a pool of things to do, and sometimes not such a challenge to get to them, even in the face of other things in the outside world. And my question, I think, and my complaint is developing habits to not ignore them, but put the rest of the world in the right place and time of your day and give it the right amount of attention so that you're still functioning and doing the things you need to do, taking the cat to the vet, doing paying work. And, you know, maybe that's a mystery. I don't know. Brett, Alex, do you have a similar, let's call it difficulty when attractive other projects come up, or does that not really enter into your everyday experience of I'm also going to do some music?
I will say from myself, it's it would probably, my life would probably be simpler if music and work were the only two things that I really needed to focus on.
I hear you.
My personality is such that once I'm awake, I've got to basically be doing something. So if something stalls out for more than about 5-10 minutes, I have probably moved on. At least, if not mentally, definitely physically.
Stalls out from your perspective, or stalls out because nobody's applying?
It's largely from my perspective, you know, and I find that I'm one of those kind of people that when I stall out and I move on, so does everyone else.
That's
so
fascinating.
it ends up becoming disruptive in a sense, and so there's I try to surround myself with things that will kind of keep my focus. But
give me one specific, like let's say give me one distracting thing and one keeping things that keep your focus thing, just because honestly I love the differences between how we all think and approach it, and I think it's helpful to understand a little bit of the specifics of how people might experience these things, if not how they solve them. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like last week, for example, I wasn't at Art of Rock because a few minutes before Art of Rock, Jacob and I were talking about joining Art of Rock, but then we wanted to listen to the God song that we were working on, and that is an example of where that suddenly took priority. And we worked on it for about an hour and a half or so, and kind of just reached that place in the design process where it's kind of like, okay, I don't have any more ideas for now. And then the next thing I know, I'm out in the garage working on the lathe and trying to carve up a just stupidity. It didn't work.
I mean, but those they sound like useful and nutritious,
Yeah.
Emotionally nutritious, mentally nutritious. They help feed your personality and possibly your creativity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that even a scheduled weekly event like this, you can switch to something that's a demanding creative work. I think that's fantastic. And the collaborative effort that you were involved in is probably a big component of that. And I think that might be something that I also experience. Like if somebody calls up and they're like, "Hey, let's work on this thing," definitely I can feel that.
Yeah, and I mean
that pull.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it's like there are times in which it works the opposite way as far as the collaborative part, where I'll be inspired, I'll be in the studio, I'll be jamming by myself, and bass hits summon other musicians to the studio.
Right.
So
I get it.
Yeah.
I would like to have my own creative inspiration be that other person sometimes, like a lot better. Like it's calling to me. I hear the muses and I want to get to it in the same way that kind of collaboration goes. Alex, do you have thoughts on that too?
In general, I'm doing far too little of everything, but I've gotten way better at finding little pockets of time to do music when I wouldn't have done anything good else. Like realizing I've been like on Twitter for 10 minutes and without any aim, so I just close Twitter and open the DAW and do something.
That's some
Unfortunately,
skills.
that doesn't work all the time. For example, I can't sing after 10 p.m. because my neighbors like to sleep at some point. But luckily, headphones exist, so I can work on music and maybe just put down a drum machine with headphones or open the DAW and just work on stuff.
And okay, you said way too little of everything. Now, I assume that means spending too little time on music and creativity specifically.
No, and also other life stuff, but
Okay.
that's
Gotcha. Before we go back to Carl, I'm interested when you realize in that moment, I'm on Twitter, what happened? Why that 10 minutes is not exactly, I keep going with the word nutritious. I don't know why that's on my mind. It doesn't, feed into the things that you want to be doing, and you decide to do something else get into the music studio and do something productive and creative. Is that a positive experience where you're attracted toward the music stuff, or is this like a panic moment where you feel like you're beating yourself up a little?
I don't know that
I
it's the right
think
word
anybody
for
can
me.
jump in and answer that. Go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think it's panic is quite the right word. There is definitely a pressure of some sort that I put on myself. There's definitely a something like I look back and it's like, oh man, I haven't been in the studio in a couple days. That's not good. I need to do that. There's that kind of emotion.
I'm wondering which is more in balance, like the things that say, "Oh, there's something exciting in the studio, and I'm attracted to it," versus I'm doing bad things on social media, and now I feel bad. And I know that there's like some sort of like reframing to do, and like not beat yourself up about having spent that time, and like go do the productive thing and make up for it. Carl, your hand is up. I think you probably have something to
Thank
add.
you. My thoughts are have a hat. Have a hat. Like literally a hat, a cap. And it is your okay, I'm doing music now hat. Because having, if you can have some kind of process, yes. Look at that. It's the I'm doing music now beanie.
This is my hat.
That's a good hat.
Thank you.
But you have, and you got make sure that it fits over headphones or under headphones. But if you actually have a physical thing that you can put on imbue to help you neurologically go into music mode, then that could happen. And it's got to be treated like it is a sacred hat. And you might also spray the hat with a smell, like you might get lavender or something like that. Why did I pick lavender?
Yeah, I love it though. That just resonated with me so strongly, like building more sense memories. We haven't talked about this in a long time. So,
Yeah. And because I used to have the habit of I'm making music now shirts, and I put on my music shirt, which is ripped up and it's a band shirt, and but I haven't done that in a while, interestingly, nor have I done the hat thing, probably because it's hot. So having something physical, even if it's okay, I've only got an hour, I'm going to make a coffee, or something like that to help you get into the space of music. Also have a text pad that, or something that says stuff you can do in an hour. And it might be quickly work on the mix, throw down a demo vocal, short tasks. And the trick is that you you need to read these things every night before you go to bed, or you need to read them like they're a meditation or something like that. because we can juggle, but only so much. And, you know, if you've only got an hour or so, I think myself personally, it's good to do stuff that's more mathematical based, like mixing. Like, I'm not waiting for that bass line to drop out of the sky, or I'm not waiting for those lyrics to miraculously form, or there is a period of lyric writing, which is, okay, I need to make these syllables fit into this pattern. Yes, that might work, but for me, that's a 2-hour plus job, because I get angry, throw things around, and I have to clean up the furniture after I've ruined it, after breaking televisions and such. So mixing's always a really good thing to do. It's difficult also for me because it's a different door. Laptop is here, music computer down there. Something else I can do besides turning on the music computer is I can start, if I'm thinking about a song, I can start gathering samples, and I can start building an EMAX library from raw WAV files, or process them, or start moving them across to EMAX file types, stuff like that. And you know, in that time, you can still say, well, I need a snare, so I'll grab some of the snares that Alex did for the diesels and the diode and dust, our Kawai R100 fucking stuff that he fucked up, which is just so fantastic. I should put a link in. So that's a thought. Somebody else give me a thought.
These are great thoughts, and I love the fact that most of what you three have talked about are the attractive nature of the work, not the fighting to keep other things from intruding side of it, which is really what I was thinking I wanted suggestions for. But having heard, it's just nice to hear the reinforcement that there's some pleasure in the work. I mean, I think that's a thing to remember and to tell yourself. And if you're doing a mantra at night where you're reading your short tasks that you can reinforce yourself with, maybe a note about that it's good, and I do enjoy it, would be you know, a nice component of my self-reminder. Thank you.
Do we want to keep going on this, because it's fantastic, and I this is such a good chat?
I would love if anybody has like actual scheduling and actual like turning notifications off and who to ignore and how to prioritize kind of thoughts. I would love to hear them. I've got my own. I don't think they're totally healthy, but I do get the stuff done eventually with them. So go ahead.
Brett, I see your hand. Go.
So I actually, I can speak a little bit to the to Razi's last question there, as far as like notifications and such like that. My phone has a feature where if I turn the screen face down, it goes into silent mode. That is a habit. And when I'm done for the day, that screen goes face down, and good luck. If you're literally, you have to be in a very small list of people who are authorized to call me at that point, and that is the only means to reach me. Otherwise, you're better off trying to hit my wife. However, I did have a parallel, actually a kind of change of subject sort of question, if I could throw that out there. So there's an artist out of the UK who's not really our genre, but I don't know. I like his stuff every now and then. His name is Ren. He's a kind of a hip hop artist, and so this week he actually dropped a song he got, and it was kind of an interesting subject matter overall because it tied into how he bought a beat from I think it was BeatStars or something like that. Long story short, the beat he bought had a sample in it that was not cleared by the producer. Now, that led to the song that I'm talking about, and also my question. The song that he ended up putting out there is called Cujo Beatdown, and in it he had these really cool angelic choirs, and I think he actually got a choir to actually sing them. I don't know that for sure. Nonetheless, that is a sound that is of high interest to me. I'm curious if anyone has tips or whatever, and either reaching choirs or sample packs or something in that regard to you know, along that lines.
Yeah. That goes three ways, and only three ways, no more than three ways. Hiring really talented background singers, and I do mean specifically they're all lead vocalists. Everybody who sings is also their own artist in their own right, pretty much. But a lot of people do take backing vocals gigs, and they're really good at doing that. And they can blend up like layered tracks like nobody's business. I was in a session for a rap artist that I was producing, and I charted just a little chordal progression for backup stuff. And and we had two singers in with different voices, a high alto and a alto, and they were just enthusiastic. Like they were like, no, I'll do a couple more takes. Like, let's just layer this up. Let's do a few more. And so we ended up with improvs. We ended up with layers. We ended up with the actual backing vocal, harmony part that I had charted out. And we ended up using like a lot of their stuff and building beautiful sounding custom vocals that had the right inflection and timing and breath and stuff for this particular backing track for the artist. So they were not super expensive to work with. This artist wasn't a 1,000 seller by any stretch, but he wanted this track and he liked the idea and it worked out really nicely. So as a project, it's kind of like paying admission for an entertainment thing for him, I guess, in some ways. And I mean, I was getting paid for the work anyway, so I guess maybe my vote doesn't count. But it seems like a great experience to do it that way, at least once or twice in your life. And path two, I've heard people replicate a sample, like hiring an actual Gregorian style choir because you can't get it clearances on the actual needle drop of a, some vintage kind of recording that you loved. And sometimes you just hear it missing the mark. Like, they meant it to be dripping in this sort of like mysticism, but it just sounded like some dudes, in Pro Tools at home. And it doesn't have the same magic, but you know what they meant, but it didn't work. So that's like kind of a tough balance, and sometimes just going the other way and, getting a different concept that than the sample that you're trying to emulate can be stronger. And then the third sort of comment is that there are a lot of very, very expressive with key switches and modulations and different vowels and different groupings for the the sections in sample packs that I don't have a lot of experience with, but I suspect other people chiming in or in the chat have, that you can end up doing something pretty expressive, and it ends up like, oh, I heard the blend between ooh and ah, and it wasn't like the same 5 people singing. I'm gonna kind of like, but then throw some reverb on it and you've actually got a thing. So yeah, sample packs with expression and key switches and stuff, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can make the thing that you're hearing in your head, especially with oohing and ahhing ethereal vocals, really come to life, if you're not going to go the opposite direction and hire 2 people to multi-track it.
Thank you, Alex.
So for me, the one I've used is the one in my Korg. If you have an M1 VST or something, maybe you have the same choir patches in there. I think they gave it away as a VST with some controllers and such, so you might have it. I don't know. From the ones I haven't used, I heard Spitfire has a good one, but I haven't used it. I think it's relatively affordable, like $50 or something. And what a friend of mine did with me and other friends at New Year's Eve, we were like maybe 10 musician friends celebrating New Year's Eve, and at some time he said, "Hey, would you mind recording a choir line for my new EP?" And then we just got together, a bit drunk, but we still managed to keep the pitch in order, and then we just sing the parts, and it was quite nice. So maybe that's an option. It's always interesting, even though it doesn't sound as professional as like VST.
No, it'll sound better than a VST. I'm gonna come back to that. Okay, I've done a couple of choir recordings, and this is how I did it. I had 4 vocalists. I was at uni. Luckily, they were vocal majors, and I got it was a 4-piece harmony, and I actually wrote it Bach harmony because once upon a time I could do that. Clearing that out of my mind may have been the greatest thing I've ever done, because although I got to tell you, Bach counterpoint, and you can probably type in here are your head notes and here are your chords. Bach counterpoint is a really great way to make your choir sound like a choir, because you're harmonizing. Every single note has got its own chord. So the whole chord might be C through like 2 bars, but as the melody is moving, every single note is being harmonized with a chord. And there's all these funny rules, like it's going to be a major 7 here, but it'll be a flat 7 here, and stuff like that. And you're going to make it sound classical. And I'm sure there's either AIs or something where you can actually put in the thing and, figure it out. So maybe it is a good trick. And something I do love doing is being very non-diatonic, as in moving around different chord groups, like having chords that are, hey, wow, that chord is not a part of that, the main chord that's going on here, but it's setting up for something dark and evil. Ivan, good to see your face. And the trick is, you get, if there's 4 vocalists or 2 vocalists, each they group together, you record them together at the same time on the one microphone, and they sing one line, and you might do 2 or 3 or 4 takes, 5 takes, and keep the best 3. Then they do the second line, then they do the next line, then they do the next line. And the way you do the line is you play it to it over and over again. You could put dots on, actual music out, and a really simple synth line that's playing the melody. And each time it plays it only plays their part. Using your vocal on this is a great way to do as well, because you're going to get the Enya sound going, but it's going to, in your case, it'll be the Brett sound. And that could be really fantastic. Don't be afraid of going ever so slightly out of tune, slightly, not a semitone, but slightly, because it's going to add a really fantastic chorusing to it. You might actually want to get one of those vocals, and you might want to hard bang it to pitch correction, so that as everything else is mulching over it, there's this wonderful chorus that's naturally happening. 2. You can also do the whole thing where you record it a semitone higher and then you pitch correct it. So the vocals are going to be, and then there's cloning technology as well, which is great. I'm all about doing as much with your mouth as you can, because it's more fun, and it's, I don't know, I just like it more. For example, in Princess Chaos, the vocalist in that one, I got them to sing, each line, and then I knocked it together and I wrote it all with, Bach counterpoint, so it sounds Bach-y. Cloning, I mentioned, in a previous life when I did sound design for EA Sports, we had to mimic the sound of a choir, of a stadium singing. And the way I got that was on a Friday afternoon, and I got all the staff in the facility, like 30 people, crammed into the booth, and I just put 2 mics on it, and I got them to sing an each vowel sound. If you ever do have a drunken party, it might be good to do this, because someone is going to sing flat, and that's okay. And the trick is, if you can do a stereo recording, that's great. Mono recording will be just fine. But if you can get like 5 seconds and maybe 2 different 5 seconds recording, and then for the first one, the mics are there, and for the second one, you flip them around just so there's more space going on. The thing about a crowd is you really only hear the vowels. You don't hear the consonant. If you've got singers over the top hitting the consonant of the sound, then you're going to get away with it. But if you want to do a big a really big big chorus. That's how you do it. And we managed to fake that by adding a lot of reverb to it and layering it up. And then they stuck it in their engine. It was really clever, actually. They stuck it in their engine, and the engine would randomly play the notes ever, like only by 2 or 3 semitones, and they would be randomly picking what vowel would come next. So you got the sound of an English, if you've ever seen an English rugby game, they just sing. They sing the whole time. And so it was, and each week it's a different song. And it's funny because they don't know how people are communicating these songs to each other. They just know the songs. Are they learning them in pubs? I don't know. English and football. And then, Alex, your idea of a party, I think, is brilliant, because like you've got the one choir, which is, oh, we're very serious and we're hitting it right now and it's going to be great. And then there's the other one, which is, it's a bunch of drunks singing along out of tune. I'm telling you, the bunch of drunks are going to add so much energy to that track, and get them not to whistle and not to clap, and not to clink their drinks. And it will be fucking ballin'. And another thing to do is while they're there, do a separate clap track. Like in the 70s, they'd all stand around like clap. It will add so much energy. So next time you're at a drunken party, in fact, you should have a drunken musicians party where everybody turns up and do a like the job is to record everybody's like backing vocals. I'd be down for that sort of party. That would be great. And you do the woohoos and stuff on different tracks so you can dump them in there. So depending on what you're doing, and also crowd, like, and then you get into crowd chants. Crowd chants are harder because they have to be seriously on the beat for them to work, but you're gonna add great energy to the song if you can do that, and if you can pull it off. Like I think I mentioned this last week or something, but when I was in Angelspit, I found that people, when they drink, for every drink they have when they're playing live, this is members of Angelspit, would fall behind the beat by 1/32. So after 2 drinks, oh no man, I'm fine. No, they were a 16th behind the beat. So alcohol's great, but reasons. Anyway, right, that's all I got. Razi, I see your hand.
I'm finding that I miss working with live humans singing.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking about it, we're kind of getting into it. One of the first things that You Shriek did on probably a demo cassette and in the studio recording rather than in the home studio recording setting was have just like put a word out to fans and friends and family to come in for a studio session at a time. And you're going to have to leave. I'm sorry, but this is what we're going to do. And the key to getting a group of people coordinated is standing in front of them and waving your arms in obvious ways and, you know, practicing it a few times, because they're not all going to have headphones probably, and you don't necessarily want the speakers with the backing track blasting into your room. But we did a very simple, probably just a mono mic or something. Maybe it was a coincident stereo pair, and had the group yell the syllables of the words that we needed. And, you know, 1, 2, 3, fuck you, shriek was this thing that we did. And it was hugely successful. We did a bunch of layers of it, and everybody got to participate that wanted to. And I think it might have been kind of fun to go into the studio, and it was certainly a pleasure for us as the band. So, you know, that sort of drunken crowd style group participation, loosely yelling stuff, super cool, very interesting. The other thing you can do, I've been on a couple of projects where there were groups singing in the way that you see, you know, Roy Thomas Baker productions with the Cars or Queen or something doing these big stacks. But they weren't going for like a tight, focused, intense thing. They were going for a spread. And we did probably either an XY or some sort of stereo pair in the middle, plus room mics to capture the room. Maybe it was a coincident pair, but something with solid imaging. It was probably XY for the stereo part. So you've got 4 tracks of mics or so. And we stood them in clusters in the space, And as they did build up their takes, not even doing stacks of parts necessarily, but just on the same take, stand in a group on the left, stand in a group on the center, stand in a group on the right, and you get a filled out natural spread of choir kind of sound, which, yeah, they're the same voices, but they're different performances in different places in the room with all the, echoes and reverb differences that you get from that. And it was a super good sound in the end. Maybe I never even heard the finished recording, but it sounded great in the control room. And then Carl, talking about the influence of Bach on that stuff is like also really kind of fun if you need another rat hole, but while composition and arrangement make all the difference in what you're hearing in your mind's ear and what you get, on the final recording. A couple of the takeaways, like I have no training in this thing, but I remember people mentioning like no parallel fifths, no octaves, don't have two lines following each other for more than, one beat on the same interval. So if the sopranos and altos are both singing a fifth apart, not in the next note, they've got to have contrary motion, and you end up with this like puzzle to figure out. And
Yeah.
we're talking like an 8-bar section here. Don't go crazy and do a full thing because we're, got other stuff to become proficient at. But if you get these skills, like it's like, like a 15 puzzle or something where you're moving the voices and you still want the voices to tell the melodic story that you're doing, but getting them to intertwine and move and have that voice leading from chord to chord is a super satisfying, project experience thing to do. Totally.
What I will say is the trick is you go thirds and sixths, as much thirds and sixths movement as you can, but it can't everything. The thing is that, like you said, contrary motion means they're moving like that. You don't want them moving like that. You want them moving like that. And they might double, but it's a bigger conversation and probably anyway. What I will say really quickly is also know the choir. If you've got a choir coming in and there are a bunch of people who don't really sing very much, don't expect Bach. Expect a hooligan choir, and hooligan choirs are fucking awesome, by the way. But then, and I was thinking that I work with the Los Angeles Trans Choir, and they are beautiful. And I could probably swindle those guys in. But on the other thing, I know maybe they would be a great drunk choir. I'm not sure. They've all got that real classical voice training. So if I wanted that beautiful angelic mist, that's the sort of thing I do. I've got to tell you, this conversation, Brett, thank you for bringing this up. I'm really inspired to have a party at Carl's place and record some goddamn vocals. Ivan, I see your hand and you're in the sun? You're outside? Talk to me, baby.
I'm at KnobCon.
How is it there?
Sure I am.
Do you want to talk about choirs?
Yeah, well, and recording them. When I was you were at EA downtown the same time that I was at Midway. And at Midway, we all signed model releases as part of working at Midway. And when they would need like crowd, they would just haul a whole lot of us out to the parking lot and park us facing the side of the wall, and then just mic the shit out of it and have us, like they would just instruct us on what to do next. And, we would spend, an hour just recording audio.
That's absolutely fantastic. If you can, I do want to come back to you at some point and talk about KnobCon. I don't know how much time you've got, but yeah, that is one of the really fantastic things about if you end up working in tech or games, a release is part of it because, your voice or something's going to end up in there. Is it okay if we segue and Ivan talks about gear acquisition syndrome? Yeah, of course it's okay. Ivan, how's KnobCon?
It's actually quite good this year.
Have you seen the mayor?
Last year I was recovering. No.
Is Suit there? Say hi to Suit. Carl from Angelspit says hi to Suit.
I will. Last year I was recovering from COVID, so it kind of sucked to be here, but this year I'm not, so it's actually kind of awesome. And there's some stuff to show off. I should see if I can take signal is gonna get lost if I go in. It's got this like there's like a Eurorack case maker making these really stunning like HR Geiger looking Eurorack cases.
Great.
They're just cool. Yeah, I don't know how like useful they are. They're just cool.
That's great. Have you seen anything like, if you were to take one synth home that you've seen, what would it be?
The new Oberheim is kind of nice.
Is that the TO or the OBX? Or do they have something else?
Either of them. I've just gotten hands on with both, and they're both nice. And the new one, the TIA, is like, if you get along with it, like if you already understand the Take 5, you understand that thing already, because the controls are in exactly the same places. Like, which is just actually kind of cool. Like I appreciate that.
I think it's fantastic the way that Sequential and Oberheim are really helping each other out. And
yes,
it's actually my hope that one day they're going to get Rosum. I hope his name is said right, Dave Rosum, the other day from Emu, and get him making another. Because like it's interesting that the keyboard bed of Sequential was actually made by Emu. They made the keyboard bed. Like, all these guys have been sleeping with each other the whole time. And also
almost certainly.
Yeah, and they're also, Roger Lynn is also one of that crew as well.
Yes.
I really hope that, if they did another, like an SP, like there's SP12 clones coming out and stuff, but man, if they did, we're going to build another EMAX, that would be fucking insane.
Oh, yeah, no. That would be a great thing to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my only disappointments this year are like, Moog's not here, and I would love to have like Roland show up, and like hopefully, like, considering the size of this, I'm hoping that they would consider it next year.
There are a lot of people there. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, it is packed.
Great. That's great. And that was all started by Suit and Tie Guy. Suit. The guy's a legend, and I've got some of his modules. They're fucking brilliant. I was actually at Suit's house the night Bowie died. Yeah, that's my claim to fame. There's a name drop. But anyway, it's Alex is having it. Yeah, Alex wants a photo of the oh look, they have done the 2400. Wants a photo of that Geiger rack. I'm sure a lot of people do.
Oh, I will get one. Yeah, I will post that to Discord shortly.
God, good stuff.
Good.
Hold on, I'm just going to throw it to Alex. Alex, what's going on?
I just wanted to say that there is one company making a spiritual successor and people sing its praises. I haven't used it myself because I don't have that money and I already have an MPC 1000, but I've heard good things. Basically that.
I've also
And
heard
it's not
really
by
good
Dave
things.
Rossum. It's by another company.
Good fun. It's interesting that something I did want to talk about later today is gear that when you throw it an idea, it throws more back at you. And I know that the SP12s are one of them, the SP range, because of the way their brain works. It's not just the sound, it's the way the brain works. It's the way that the functionality, and also the NPCs. It is the functionality of the machine and the process you have to go through, the lily ponds you have to jump over to get to the final thing is going to end up enriching your idea, which is another reason I absolutely love hardware, because you have to fuck around. It's not, I'm sure in soft synth there's an amount of fucking around, but there's just something about the toil you have to go through to get a sound onto an EMAX or a fucking emulator 4, or sitting down at a synth, menu diving or twiddling knobs. There's just something about it. Looks like we're talking about synths, which is fine by me. Ivan, do you want to keep feeding our gear acquisition syndrome?
I should probably let you guys go for now, just because signal's going to be a pain.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go in and get some pictures taken. All right.
You're the best, man. Thank you so much.
Cool.
And say hi to everyone.
I will.
Rock and roll. God, I miss Chicago. Not in the winter though. And it's a heat wave in LA. We're going to go over 100 today. Oh joy. Do we want to go back and is this a good time to segue into synths that give you more bang for your buck, or do we want to keep talking about choirs?
I'm all out of choirs.
Alex is all out of choirs. Okay, well, I was thinking, Carl's going to go on an EMAX rant, I'm warning you now, about synths that when you give them something, they give something back. And I was listening. I remembered that there was a guy, he's a massive Depeche Mode fan, and he goes on and on about the EMAX, and he was saying that when you put something in an EMAX, it instantly sounds like late 80s. Instantly. And that inspires ideas. And for me, and obviously I want to throw the idea out to you guys and get what your thoughts are on this and the gear you use, is stuff where you throw an idea at it, and it's going to come back with something completely different. Like, that's the beautiful thing about the EMAX, is that you can record something weird and random and then loop it, and it comes out as this beautiful, creepy whatever, or something, gritty. Like, it adds emotion. The thing it was built for cyberpunk. Maybe cyberpunk really happened because the EMAX or Mirage, but definitely the EMAX. Alex, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I try to not buy gear where I don't know what results I will get, because I just can't afford to spend money on something where I don't know what it will do for me. But I have lots of gear that will yes and what I do. For example, the Octatrack, there are like a set of parameters per track, and sometimes you wonder, hey, how will it sound if I just turn this dial or this knob, and you can quickly go back. So it's just easy to test things out, and this often leads you places you wouldn't have gone otherwise if you have, for example, a DAW where you have all the options, but it's not pre-configured, so you don't know, what happens if I do this. So that's something I really like. And also I had something, an FM patch, where it did something that I have no idea why it was doing it, like some weird phasing, but it sounded great, and I recorded it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I will say quickly, DJ Recovery Rate, Diana, and Alistair, Chud, welcome. It's great to see you. Brett, talk to me. What's going on?
So, in terms of something that I have here that I throw something into and it throws stuff back out, or adds more to it, I guess, or responds to it in its own way, or something to that effect, that sentiment. That's kind of how I feel about the DAW itself. So I'm an FL Studio house, whatever. I don't know what the correct phrasing of that is, but I find that that is the instrument that I'm in the most, that I'm using the most, that I'm sketching stuff, and where I come with like the Kurzweil, the Korg, and the Casio. Each one of these things bring like their own personalities to it, so it's kind of, to me, like all my hardware. I love my hardware as well. Won't trade that at all. But the way that I can assemble sound and manipulate sound in the DAW is very natural for me. So it's one of those where it's like, if you hand me a sample and it's like, okay, yeah, but I only like that 1 millisecond, I know exactly what to do. And I'll sit there and I'll hold straight in on it, grab it, repeat it about 10,000 times, and now I have a note. There. So I guess my answer to that thought question is that, you know, I think like you were saying with the EMAX, you know, it has, you know, whatever you throw at it, you know, brings back the 80s. What I love about Kurzweil's is that clarity of sound. That's kind of their personality, if you will. My Korg, you know, it has just this grittiness about it that I can't replicate in VSTs. And it's also why I picked up guitars. No matter how many samples I got, I could never make one sound the way I need it to sound to do what I do. But that thing that all of them have in common is I'm able to pull it into that environment where I can get my fingers on it, on each little detail, and rip it apart.
That's brilliant, man. Thank you so much. And Razi, hit me.
As much as I do it, and I hate to dwell in nostalgia, but here we are. I was thinking through all the hardware synths that I've owned and which ones like do a thing when you do the push the button and there's more. And it's like, yeah, they all kind of do something, but the CP70 kind of ranks up there with, you hit anything in the top 2 octaves, you hit anything anywhere on the thing, and it sounds like all of the recordings that you know from Yamaha CP70s, and you hear the history of that instrument and the live performances that you've seen with it and the people you've seen standing on it and spilling beers on it and the beautiful glassy chorused recordings you hear with it playing through a Roland, you know, JC amp and stuff. And so even without feeding that into some compressors and a reverb and chorus, it's got a tone that when you play the notes, it rings back with something limited, idiosyncratic, not terribly useful, but so that it makes you want to write some stuff and finish the piece, or, you know, keep playing. So it gives that back. And Brett, I was trying to find a way to say the DAW, but you pretty much, you took that and ran with it. Getting into certain, I was going to say rut, but it's the opposite of a rut. Whatever the momentum is inside Ableton Live, doing some routing and side chaining and stacking of effects and manipulating incoming MIDI notes. There's multiplicative effects there a lot of the time too. For sure.
That's lovely. I was just reading how Peter Gabriel's go-to was a CP70 with a Fairlight on it, or a Prophet 5 on it.
Yeah,
always...
putting an ARP Omni on top of it is sort of the Jeff Downs kind of a way, but yeah, that's
fantastic.
For sure.
And everyone in Genesis had a CP70. There you go. It does have the most beautiful fucking sound, doesn't it?
Plink.
Yeah, it really.
Unless you're playing the left hand on the bass octave, and then it's just completely out of tune with itself, and there's nothing you can do about it. So
that's lovely. Okay. Does anybody else have a being? Yeah. The one thing I do love about the EMAX is that you don't know. You don't know what you're doing. Like being in a position where you can have a happy accident or something, or explore it, is just really, really wonderful. Like, you know, what would happen if what does this sound when it's backwards? What does it sound like when you do something as simple as give it a slow attack and a slow decay? Or set up, like, something I love doing on the EMAX is having a loop on the sound, and then setting up another loop on release. And the loop on the sound is this beautiful loop that sounds great, but the release loop goes hank, 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 hank. Then you put a slow attack on it. So when you take your fingers off, it goes, ha, 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 ha. And obviously, as you play the sound higher, the rate of that loop becomes shorter. So the actual letting go of the sound for each note you play is different. So if you play a chord and you let go, it's sort of the low one is looping slower than the high one as the middle one. You know what I mean? So it becomes this really interesting thing. Whereas like Logic suggests that you want stuff to fall on the beat and you want stuff to be a time delay. But what's great about and Depeche Mode used to do this a lot. You know, once again, you're open to this stuff just happening. And you know, when you have a sound that is, for example, a loop pad sound, but it's not a sound going, it might be a running a bow along a string badly. So you're hitting all these harmonics and stuff in it. And then you might wind that backwards, and that 3-second uneven thing that's still actually playing the note, but it's got all these harmonics and gritty bits in it, becomes the most amazing pad you've ever heard, because of the because it's not working right. It's broken. It's weird. It's scratchy. And it's this beautiful emotional content in the sound. Alex, what do you think about everything?
The most interesting things like that happened to me in the DAW is when I accidentally copied something wrong, like into the wrong place, or duplicated something when I didn't mean to, play two things that were not meant to be played together, or routed something accidentally the wrong way. And that can be very beautiful. Also, I really like when two systems communicate through MIDI or some other means that is like very crude. So these two perfect digital systems have still a way of behaving weirdly, because there's like this little straw where they exchange information, and so there's like a bit of ambiguity and wonkiness happening, even though it's all digital. And yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. I'm currently just deep diving in the Genesis wiki. They've got a gear wiki for Genesis, and it's like, wow, this is fantastic. Wow, he used that Prophet 5 everywhere. What a fucking sound. Okay, do we want to flip on over, because we're starting to talk about DAWs? Did you guys want to talk about Ableton? You had an Ableton thing? Launch into it. Let's talk about Ableton.
Yeah, I'm currently working on a remix for Carl, and I wanted to use that opportunity to finally learn Ableton and get better at it. And it has been both rewarding but also a pain in the posterior, because first of all, I had this really bad bug where some of the internal instruments and effects just wouldn't show up. And so I had to update the program, but it only updates from one version to another. So you can't jump from version 12.10 to version 12.25 directly. You have to do it in increments. So I had to constantly sit there and restart Ableton. Ultimately, I just downloaded the latest version, which was the right idea. And that was an ordeal. Then of course I'm a bit. I realize I'm not as fast as I am on my hardware, because obviously I don't have like the motor skills, the intuition where things are. I have to look things up. And also I realize what do I want to say? I'm just not as fast, and also it's not as fun punching in sequences with a mouse compared to just a hardware piece where I just know, okay, like for example on the actual track, if I want to do four on the floor, it's like 1 second, because I go like that and it's done. I do appreciate though having like the possibility to have an infinite amount of EQs, because on the octave track you only have 2 effects per track and you have to use them wisely. So using that gives you much more control, which I appreciate. And the last point, I think, is one thing that kept me from using the DAW was a certain kind of sound, and I realized it was just saturation. I found just one really good saturation plugin, and I'm getting much closer to the sound I'm used to from hardware. So that was like a real revelation. Yeah.
Love it. Just Razzie, take this over. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I can't because he said everything. Alex, you covered all the things about the thing. I mean, so I can't tell you anything you don't know because you know everything. But for the sake of discussion, yeah, Ableton's website has the latest version, and if you use the auto update function within it, it may just go up to the next version. This is information for anybody else who hasn't already discovered that. If you happen to be several versions behind in your account on the site, you can jump to whatever your system supports without going through the torture gauntlet that Alex went through partway. And I would underscore the importance of training yourself on the left-hand command keys. Like, that is the equivalent of hardware, because the bandwidth on your mouse and pointer, finger, even though we've got a couple of gestures, I mean, I assume we're taking the benefit of all of the beautifully smooth, lovingly animated scrolling and zooming that Ableton in particular affords. That kind of experience is important, but it's still just a couple of pinch gestures, a couple of click gestures, and you end up, where you can, like you were saying, run your hand over a bunch of physical knobs, or use both hands, or have a couple of things like this with your fingers and faders. You lose all of that bandwidth and dexterity when you're hunting and pecking on a screen, for sure. And the only ways around that are to make a lot of macros that do the things you want to do, assign a lot of controller knobs to things you want to do. And for me, this doesn't stick. This isn't like a permanent solution. Now I have hardware control of Ableton Live. I don't have a push. I don't have permanent, knobs and faders that control expected things in Ableton. They don't translate to permanent to me in the way that hardware does. So I'm with you on that. But giving yourself a good habit of like, okay, yeah, this is a 3-parameter thing, and I'd like to make it expressive. Map a knob. It's real fast and easy to do. Keep in the habit of that. And as I was saying, the left hand on the keyboard with your command and modifier keys, and also no modifier, just no meta key equivalents, like for the zooming and returning to zoom stuff that they've added in the past few versions. There's a lot you can get faster at that's just interface stuff. We're not even talking about making music now. We're just talking about navigating your document and sort of building those muscles from the start, so that you know where X and Z are, and H, and these things that sort of jump you around the screen. I think Ableton really nailed it with those in a way that no other DAW has for me, where they're not modifier keys. They're just single commands, and they jump and return in predictable ways. I think that's it. Those are the sort of thoughts I had on getting into it, multiplying your input bandwidth a little bit by learning the commands and stuff on the left hand, and you're going to be saddled with the mouse and pointer kind of narrow bandwidth on there, so there's no way around it. It really, like I said, you Alex, you said it all. I can't add too much to that.
Do you know if there's maybe a resource where they're all listed or something, or well explained?
I used to have a utility on earlier macOS 10-ish times that was like popped up all of the commands available in an app or something like that. But the other resource that we have in macOS is the help menu. There's a search field, and if you have a command category, you can just type it, and then it points to where it is in the menu backwards, because it isn't just a list of the commands. But if there's still a utility that once you, in the same way that on iOS, if you hold down the modifier key, it'll show you all the available commands just like that. There's probably still a utility for maybe also for other platforms, Windows, macOS, that will, as you're holding down the modifier, either the combination of modifiers, it'll show you all the commands available and what they do and stuff. That was super useful. Yes, there was one. Don't know if there still is.
I think Brett posted what I was exactly looking for.
Or just a
and
chart.
what you referring to is like a program or like an app for Mac that I used to use, but I'm a bit worried about because I don't know if I trust the developer, but that's just my paranoia.
Yeah,
But
we have there is some ability to mess yourself up on those things. If they're running full time in the background with access to all your apps, I get it.
yeah, but it's still available, and I used it for a time.
Cool.
Yeah, and the other thing is Novation came out with like a new range of MIDI keyboards specifically, or like aimed for Ableton, but you can use them for other DAWs as well. And they have this feature where you can use the step sequencer. And I'm really salty that I just bought a MIDI keyboard because I really would like to have this functionality. But it's also a pitfall because I had like this thing, which I bought partially for that. And it's great, but my problem is sometimes I knock these faders, and I was wondering why I was hearing a sound double, and I didn't realize I accidentally had a send to delay that I didn't mean to activate. So I don't know, buyers beware or musicians beware. That's why now my MIDI keyboard is behind my computer keyboard.
Wow. Okay, keep going. This is great. Brett, what you got?
So I'm not an Ableton user, but a lot of the concepts you're talking about there, Alex, are things I've run into as well. So my kind of approach to it was controllers are awesome, but if the DAW is going to be the sound source, then I don't necessarily need those controllers to do that. With FL Studio, Akai actually made a Firebox that actually gives you those same sort of quick functions. Like if you want to do 4 on the floor, I can literally, I've got a step, all light right there, just exactly like you're talking about. Here's all my hats, and go. And that's great when I want to do that. I do not like sitting there having to click in every note. So what I do to shortcut that, and you probably know this as well, I use the DAW initially just kind of like a recorder, let me capture all the data, let me just get it in there. And what carries with that, and this is probably more for the general audience, what carries with that is that human element that is very difficult to sit there and meticulously program. It's actually easier once you have it in there to clean up the oh, that note's way too loud, let me grab you, bring you down, and those little errors that happen just because fingers and whatnot aren't perfect to our ears. And then literally I find that it's a transition, at some point, once I've got the data right, however it gets there, however it's easiest to get there, once I have it there, that's when I'll sit there and I want the tools of the DAW where I can truly dive into it with a scalpel and start ripping out pieces and go that way. To that regard, I end up using a lot of these shortcuts as well, so that I can zoom into this piece that lasts about 3 milliseconds, to move that hit left and right on the beat, just a touch or whatever it be. But that's my 2 cents sort of to it.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to reiterate the importance of knowing key shortcuts and having them set up, and they'll help you work so much faster. That is one thing, the reason, so Brett's helping me with my computer, and he's helping me. I am going to Cubase 13 this week, because I've been on Cubase 5 since 2009. So the thing about it is that I can just operate without thinking, because I know this key hits this, and this. I know in Cubase you can go through and say specific classic Cubase shortcuts, but I got to get back into this shit. Razi, talk to me.
I was just sort of off in imagination land there, thinking of all the versions of Cubase that I've looked at and totally spaced on what I was really thinking about. Ableton, for some reason, something came to mind about another sort of, I don't know if it makes anything faster or just gets you into a different rat hole, but they've added a bunch of in Ableton Live 12, the beta, public beta is out now. A lot of generative MIDI stuff, and that's like build me a drum part, do this kind of chord progression, and the variations and sort of things that you can set about how it generates the stuff, the parameters and restrictions are like they harken all the way back to the original like M and other aleatoric MIDI kind of generative things. I think I might be on the wrong track for saving any time or getting faster, but it does generate like a whole chunk of stuff for you that you can then instantly operate on. So there is at least the not so much clicking, but you know, hey, generate this, change, do a variation. I'm going to work with that. I've had some fun with it already. I don't know if it's going to prove finding its way into finished work, but seems like at least partly up the alley of workflow and speed and getting to know a thing.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to jump in at this point or talk about anything or anything? Because I've got something. Oh, look, I see faces on the screen. Alex, hit me.
I think for me personally, I don't really the generative stuff isn't such a draw for me, but I think it has its place. For example, if you just don't know where to start, you can just generate something and start from there. Maybe what you generated doesn't even end in the final song, but it still helps you to get over this hurdle of the how's it called, the blank screen, the blank page anxiety, or this problem that many people face. What I think more interesting is like setting probabilities to individual notes. And I also thought that if I ever release on cassette and do it by hand, because there's such a high demand for my music, I could just make versions of my music that are like each cassette is different from the other, because aspects of my song are so randomized that it isn't the same recording. And I find that that idea really interesting. Yeah, that was what I want to say.
One
Fantastic.
quick note on jumping in on that. The generative stuff is extremely guidable, and with the new key sensitivity stuff, you do end up with like, okay, it just made a usable chord progression rather than just, you know, starting from randomness. So it's interesting. I agreed though. Thank you.
Brett, what are your thoughts on this?
So the generative stuff, actually, for maybe the first time since kind of these new tools hit the scene, have actually turned into a song being actively worked in my studio. So it didn't start that way though. It really started as, you know, I really didn't have an idea, and so I wanted to mess around in the studio, exercise that reflex. Grabbed a beat to kind of practice with. I was like, okay, that's kind of fun, and then just started grabbing samples, just, you know, out of libraries and genres and whatnot that FL Studio provides, kind of like Ableton. I see they have that as well, and cutting them up into little pieces. And initially, that was you know, about a minute and a half little jam that I didn't think too much about. Let it sit there for a couple of days. Came back to it. I'm like, hey, you know, that thing didn't totally suck. And that's when I expanded it out to about 2 minutes, and I let my bandmate Jacob hear it, and he was like, "No, I can play with that." And now it is now it is sitting just above 4 minutes, and it goes through three major shifts in tone, and at the very end kind of wraps them together, and it's kind of a neat little instrumental. But with that said, they can be useful. I found them useful for practice, especially if I just want to sit there and jam to a guitar. You know, I don't need to sit there and design this whole complicated beat. Give me something cool. Okay, generate something else. Let me practice to that beat. Generate something else. Give me another beat. And to that regard, it's kind of like a drum machine. But there again, I've taken drum machines and just sent them over to synthesizers, not caring what notes are actually being transmitted. And that's turned out pretty cool stuff as well, especially when you start running through delays and everything else, and you just let it be, you know, this ambient sort of creature. So I think they have their place. Maybe there's a couple ideas to help inspire or something. I don't know.
Thank you very much. It's interesting that we're starting to get into AI generated stuff here. I'm okay. Excuse me, I'm okay with that. It's Alex, go.
I think their stuff isn't even AI. It's just clever scripting. It's just good old-fashioned programming. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed. This stuff is in the realm of, yeah, we've only got 12 notes to work with, and we're going to divide them into just the 8 that we're using today. And there's only so many things you can do with them, and it puts them in an order. And there's transform and generate tools are basically just key and tempo based. They don't do much more than that, but it might come up with, you know what? I'm gonna spend some time with it this week and talk like I know what I'm talking about next week instead of just trying to remember the 5 minutes that I've spent with them.
Yes. I'll just say, and welcome, Charlie. It's interesting that my thing for everything I do is I want to do as much of it myself as I can. But that's just me. And there's in every profession there is there's some kind of template to follow. Yeah, like I've thought a lot about what really is the difference between using an AI and using a generative Turing machine on your modular synth. What's the difference? And remember, this conversation is about making music. We're not going to go spiral into some AI conversation. It's about you creating your music. That's what this is about. That even with even arpeggios and stuff, I personally lean away from. And I don't do it on purpose. I just go, oh, you know, I'm not really interested in this. I'd rather be setting up a sequence of notes that's moving through it, because for me the joy of music is the problem solving thing that comes with it. And we were talking about Bach harmony before. This has been a great conversation today because I've gone, you know what, fuck it, I need to do more Bach harmonies, because it used to take me an hour to do 8 bars, you know, when I was in my prime, like fully immersed in this shit. I just really enjoy sculpting shit by hand, basically, but that's just me. You know, some people don't, and that's fine. I'm not judging anyone. Alex, jump on in.
Yeah, I agree with you there. For me personally, because I usually start with an idea in my head, and my whole quest is to realize that I usually don't quite make it the way it is in my head because I don't have the skill or the knowledge how to get there. But sometimes my attempt at recreating that is also really interesting, or maybe a bit interesting. I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Razi, I see your hand.
Yeah, there's this like sort of, maybe it's a gap, maybe it's just a sliver of light shining between being able to play the arpeggiator to get what you want. Like, I'm sure somebody does that, like tempo locked, playing the parts and reducing the note count so that it does the magical thing. But I'm with you, Carl, on wanting to exert control over the notes that are in there. And I almost always, every time that I've reached for a, you know, like just octave up, octave down, you know, in order play, notes that I held arpeggio. I put it in the MIDI so it records the output of it, and then I changed the melody and the contour of the thing by hand and end up composing a part for it that it didn't do, because I can't play the arpeggiator from the musical keyboard in the way that I hear it actually going, and there's always some improvement to be made, or some hewing closer to what I rather than better or worse, but intentional.
Thank you. I will just really quickly throw in something I was doing this week, which I haven't really done much, is while my computer was breaking down and Brett was helping me, thank you again, Brett, is I jumped on the Moog and I wrote a song, as you do every time you sit on the goddamn Moog 1. And something I did, which I don't really do very often, is because it's got a fucking awesome arpeggiator on it, I had a melody. So I was playing a close cluster of chords with the melody over the top. And so everything was existing within about a bar and a half, an octave and a half. And it was really nice to be, and it was just a simple moving up arpeggiator. But it was a really nice experiment to go to listen to that melody being played through an arpeggiator. And this is something I would never have thought of. So, it is good. And another fun thing I was having is like going, okay, I'm going to be playing 5 notes. So it's circling over a series of 5, then 4, then 3. And just really enjoying the rhythms and everything that was happening as this was bubbling away. So yeah, machines having babies with my brain. Shane, what you got? And good to see you again.
And thank you. It's good to be back. I'm sorry I'm hopping in so late, but I was listening while I was walking the dog, and then I came home. And I apologize for the forthcoming humble brag. I got to interview Robert Henke of Ableton and Monolake about 2 weeks ago, which was a personal. I was floored by being able to, and it's coming out for Igloo magazine. And I know we're not talking specifically about Ableton, but I thought, from what I'm hearing, this is germane to the conversation. I went into it with a very, I will say, fairly strident anti-AI generative stuff in general. I think it's cool and stuff. I love it. The pictures are cool and stuff, and some of the music. So I went in with that, and I asked him about it, and his response, I said, how do you feel about it? He said, well, I actually used some of it on his new album Studio, which is amazing, by the way. But he talked about, he didn't say anything about how the company's using it, but he talked about his approach, which, he said, it was really even, and I understood he couldn't really quite, crap on it fully because he's, one of the creators of Ableton. But he said, I'm wary about it, but I still use it, but it remains to be seen how it's being used. And I thought, oh, that's really nice and succinct and well put. And because also he used it, this is a guy who I've been following his music for 30 years and using his software for over 20. It really made me think, okay, well, if one of your heroes is doing it, maybe you can get the stick out of your ass and hop down off the soapbox and maybe try it. And, this year for me musically has been a lot more like really looking at how I'm making music and whether or not it's making me happy. And, do I need to learn a new instrument as well as, maybe Max, but also kind of how and what my music sounds like. And hearing that he was doing that, even at this stage was really great to hear, especially as an Ableton user. I'm just shocked. What's funny is in the interview I didn't actually talk about Ableton all that much with him, which I regret. I think he would have loved it if I started coming at him with tech support questions. But I just want to say I love hearing the conversation with you guys about when you're talking about controllers and arpeggios and stuff like that. I don't want to hog my time, but I have thoughts and variations on using that between just sort of, I realize I rely heavily on arpeggiators in my music and kind of always have as long as I've had access to ones. but at the same time, like Carl said, like sometimes, you know, playing them out by hand is A, more rewarding, and B, for me, gets more of the feel about it. But it is interesting to think about how, you know, your controller, be it a guitar or a piano or you know, something from, you know, Novation or something, our controller influences how we input the music. And yeah, thank you.
This conversation is, we're going to always be coming back to this because it's growing and it's changing and it's growing with us, which is the beauty of AI, isn't it? And us. Alex, talk to me. Thank you, Shane. Alex.
I think the way the Ableton is using AI currently is foremost for finding samples that are similar to other sounds. Like you have the snare drum and you're looking something similar, then the program will give you maybe 10 snare drums from your sample collection that sound like this one. They're not generated, they are already in your sample collection, but it just shows you, hey, this one is a bit like that. Maybe try that one. And what I don't know, but suspect that it also maybe you will in the future just type in maybe characteristics of the sound you're looking for, and then it finds those in your sample library, I suspect. But that's maybe for the future.
Thank you. Razi.
Yeah, it's funny how much I can see that the software being aware of your entire library's characteristics would be super powerful for somebody, but I just don't need it. Like, I don't know, it's weird. I'm trying to find a way to use that because it could probably increase the variety of sounds and instruments that you pick. When you're just talking about dark pad, you don't end up reaching for the FM synth, but it does, and you happen to, you know, have a world of possibilities opened up that you weren't thinking of when you typed dark pad. But yeah, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there. There's much more to explore, but since Brett's got his hand up, I want to sort of go with that.
Thank you. And Brett, let's hear it.
So I like being able to so most of the stuff I write, especially for the Demon Hate side of things, is stuff that I'm physically playing. With that said, that's not always the inspiration, and that is where I found AI to be very useful. So it becomes kind of like a different type of sample. So you can go through these sample libraries and get ideas and whatnot and grab little tones and bits that sound good and are interesting and have their own characters. Well, what I like so far about taking AI to that degree is I can hand it more of the story, essentially. So if I know that the song is going to be about, I don't know, I'm going to throw somebody in a well, I can sit there and be like, hey, give me sounds that sound like something falling down a well, and pull the machine's understanding, if you will, or poll the machine's understanding of what that would sound like. And often I find that it leads me to other sounds. It's not so much that that thing I searched for was that specific thing, but it's again that problem-solving mechanism. It's that thing that a human does. You know, be that library. You know, be that generative tool. You know, I'll be the decider of what goes into my song.
Absolutely. I want to flip this around a little. Oh, actually, no. Let's keep going. Let's keep. Rezi, what do you got?
Yeah, the sensation of assistive contributions from the machines, like doing the things that you might have forgotten you were dealing with for you. And I keep drawing the analogy with like lane keeping in your steering when you're on the highway, and you glance away for 15, 20 milliseconds, and the thing notices that you've veered a little bit and it nudges you back. Like, that's useful. And the real thing is when you get in a car that doesn't have it, it feels dead. It feels like it's not working with you. It feels like we don't have a relationship here. I'm driving, and man, I would much rather a manual transmission and, like really tight knot power steering and feel the road and all that stuff. That's super. But since I'm not a car owner and I only use rentals and Zipcar, I find myself having a relationship with these vehicles that I borrow, and when they don't have it, it's like a dead feeling. And in the same way, I would expect some of the tools in our music software to jump into action at times that we don't expect it. And it's not as much of an active thing as Alex said. These aren't active participant tools so much as you turn on keep me in A flat minor, and it will generally, the things will all, take out the notes that aren't in your key, or my tempo is 120 BPM and the time signature is 4/4 and we've got a quantized grid. Like, these are the things that you're on rails with that are assistive and passive. But there's going to be some next step where it starts gently making suggestions and decisions and adjustments in more subtle ways that are like saving your ass in the same way veering out of the lane when you look away are. And I don't know what they are yet, but I think that there's going to be some sort of like lively symbiosis kind of vibe feeling that we get. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it.
I think when an AI jumps in and says, "Hey, dude, your head's going up your ass right now," I think that's something I'm really interested in myself.
Dude, you're about to rhyme spoon with spoon. Don't do it.
Yeah. Or cat with Matt. Don't do it. Or, hey, man, you've done that before. This bass line sounds like the other bass line on that album 2 albums ago. Or
There's
you've made
15
that
songs from the 80s that have that melody. You want to do it still?
Yeah. Maybe not that, because that would be a massive downer to everyone. But how about there's 15 songs of you that have that melody, or that pentatonic with a flat 5 riff you're doing? You've done that before. That's what I would love. So I guess I need a compositional droid. Brett, what do you need?
So I kind of wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Raziel was saying there. So I actually put an AI in my car. It drives itself now. That's what I posted there. And I'm gonna draw this back to music because it works in a very, very parallel way. Even though, so if I'm going down the interstate, I'm not operating the car. The machine is. What I'm doing now is I'm hunting for that person 3 miles ahead who looks like an asshole. I'm doing what the human does well. And that's where I see AI can be a tool. I'm not scared of it. Let the tool do what the tool does. I'm still the guy who's going to sit there and be like, no, you're an asshole 3 miles ahead. Tweak that. And it becomes much more like, in both examples, it becomes much more like you're the puppeteer of the environment. And, it's just what the screwdriver does.
Okay, thank you. While we're doing this, I've been really enjoying going through a whole bunch of AI stuff and just reading things and asking it questions about me and about what I do, and it's very fascinating. I do want to tell you, I do want to flip things around just a tiny bit, and I want to have a conversation about genre. But before we do that, I need to give it an introduction. But before we do that, I want to hear what Alex has to say.
I just remembered the thing where I use AI is with mastering. To just get an idea how it sounds. How do you call it? Not Novation. Isotope has this suite, and what I usually do is I just let it do its thing, and then I listen to the results, and I usually maybe turn off some settings and tweak it to my liking. For example, sometimes it takes out resonances that I don't want to be taken out, so I just go to the EQ and deselect them, and maybe turn off the compressor or turn on the compressor, because usually it doesn't compress my stuff too much because it thinks that they're already loud enough out of the box.
Okay, thank you. And Razi, what you got?
Those isotope tools are pretty good. So far, I have only done all my mastering, then done a mastering chain with Isotope's intelligent comparison to what's in your genre and what you actually have tools. But the first comparison that it comes up with is usually an interesting take on what you did. You know, I'm sorry, on where it could go. And sometimes the gulf between my mastering chain and its putative, here's the better version, are, you know, kind of close, and sometimes they're way off. But I think, like, on the last collection of 10 songs that I did that way, it was like 6 of them I went with their chain with lots of adjustments, and 4 of them I stuck with mine. And yeah, that's the kind of like sort of collaborative, like, give me some suggestions, let's work together on this, let's throw ideas around, machiney stuff that's kind of fun. And whether or not like that uses a lot of like neural processing and like actual crazy DSP, or it's really just a, you know, FFT of like, hey, you don't have these frequencies in this dynamic range, let's move it toward that, a little bit simpler. I don't know exactly what it's doing, but it does resemble and you know, work in a similar way that I'm talking about, that collaborative. The machines are helping me where I wasn't paying attention, suggesting things that I hadn't thought of. Pretty cool.
I've got a quick question. What's the name of the website where you can go to where you can find out what gear a band's using?
What's that fucking gear.org?
Is that what it's called?
Oh,
right, you just made that up, right?
Yeah, really quick, like.
Because I know there's a place. It's interesting that as this is going on, I'm asking a lot of questions I'm asking AI about just stuff. It would be interesting to ask what chord progressions. I'm going to ask what chord progressions. Hold on, give me a minute.
I think there's a Guitar Geek or Rigs rundown or something that has all the schematics of every guitarist that you didn't expect to be on there because you never thought of him as a guitarist, but there it is. I forgot which one, the one that has the chord progressions and stuff for all songs ever, that I'm drawing a blank on. Did you stumble on the harmony tools?
I just asked an AI.
Okay.
And it's wow, that's pretty close. No, though. It's really interesting. It went through and it said, here's a bunch of songs and these are the chords. Anyway, I've started using E. E's a nice place to exist. I like E for now. I have a question about genre. I know bands hate genre. We hate talking about genre, but I want to talk about genre, like the last thing today, possibly. Genre is actually really important because it's going to help other people. Equip board, maybe that's it. It helps other people find your music. It helps with gigs. It helps with sales. It helps with all sorts of stuff. But bands don't like genre because genre makes me limited. It helps Spotify. It helps Bandcamp. It helps a whole bunch of places with people who want to find your music. Or you could accidentally get in the search because you've got the genre things done right. So if you hate genre or if you're eclectic, I don't want to fucking hear about it because we were talking about hats before. I'm putting on my record label hat, excuse me. The question is, how do you find How do you find the genre of your band? And asking a musician to define the genre is probably the worst thing you can do in the world because the musician will go, oh, well, I want to be hardcore industrial, but you're not. You're actually IDM or something else. I've been asking AIs about it, and it's interesting that it keeps coming back saying, these are the genres that were basically mentioned in press releases, and I don't know if they're correct. So here is a question to you. How do you find your genre? Alex, I see your hand go.
Should I start?
Yes.
There are multiple ways depending on where you're at. if you already have a presence, there's this one website that I can't find right now where it tells you what Spotify thinks your genre is, because of what other people listen to and where you are in their system. And if not, then I've heard you just should ask your like other people what they think your music sounds like, and then use what these bands have on their Wikipedia or their tags or whatever. That's my 2 cents.
I like it. Thank you, Resi. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm doing the search in another window while everybody's talking and then not participating in the conversation. But there are really, really well annotated and cited and connected genre maps of just subgenres of subgenres from like starting whatever year you wanted to the branch of music you think you're in, as well as upload a track and it'll give you the Music Genome project kind of view of it. And actually both of those might be Music Genome project branches. But also, like, if you want to just maybe do one of those playlist sites for that people like listen to your stuff and decide if they want to put it on their playlist, I think they have to comment on it. You could certainly probably get some mileage out of that, but maybe that's a lame way of doing it. The other way is like, just look at the flyer of the club night you're at. Whatever that says, that's probably your genre.
Okay, thank you, Brett.
So this may not be the right way to do it, but I kind of used Wikipedia. And I've gotten, I mean, what genre of music do you write? I guess is different depending on who's asking and or what is asking. Alex's point, Spotify, as an example, versus what does Carl, the record label, want to hear. A human may view that different. Is probably going to view it differently. At the end of the day, I've had my stuff be identified by AIs, and probably due to some limitations on their part, as either being rock or drum and bass. I've always just called it industrial. And even now when I look at like the categories under avant-garde and experimental, that's still the most general, but I also don't see like cyberpunk as an option. So it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I don't know. That's my thoughts to it, I guess.
This is another, thank you. This is another really interesting question, is that when you're putting your music into DistroKid, Spotify, Amazon, etc., they don't have industrial. Or I think a Spotify might. DistroKid, I think, does. But it's really interesting that they have several different kinds of Polish folk music. And all of this other stuff, but they don't have industrial. And that's one of the reasons I'm asking, is that, like, it's important that you can band together with like musicians, but it's getting your music known. That's the core that I'm saying here. Because genres and hashtags are so important. Yes, we hate them, but that doesn't matter. They're really important to get your music known and to get your music out there. And for a moment, you have to go, yes, I'm an industrial band. Yes, I'm a goth band. Yes, I may be trance, or I might be glitch hop, or I might be, you need to be open to calling yourself that, because there's going to come a point where you have to pitch a track to whatever, and it's the genre that you think, that sub genre that you've cleverly come up with and the cool kids are using isn't there. So therefore you have to you know, you got to figure it out. Yeah, Alex, go.
Do you want to know what everysound.com thinks Angelspit is?
Who?
This site, everynoise.com, you could type in an artist, and for Angelspit it says digital hardcore, industrial metal, electro-industrial, cyberpunk, Australian dance. And for you Shriek, it's gothic rock, corrosion, dark wave, eternal wave.
Wow. That was everything noise. I'm gonna put that in the thing. Just out of interest, what does it say Ice Planet 9000 is? I mean, I could look, but tell me anyway. And this has crashed.
Dark trap and funk. I don't think that's right.
Funk.
Funk with PH. It's a new style of hip hop with very distorted beats, very lo-fi. I don't think that's correct.
That's really interesting. Well, what that's telling me is I've got to be pushing myself harder, and I've got to be, because the hashtags and everything else don't exist. So I got to push that more. That's very interesting. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Oh my, wonderful. Thank you, Alex. I see the hand of the Raziel.
I just started writing post-punk for everything. Catches all. The same way you could just say alternative for everything 30 years ago. I think you can just say post-punk for everything.
Post-punk for everything.
I exaggerate, but.
Okay. This is great. Thank you very much, Adam Bomb. It's fantastic to see you in the chat. I think unless anybody else wants, I see the hand of Brent.
I guess I just kind of had a parallel thought that kind of went along with that, with genre a little bit. Most of the artists, actually all the artists that I listen to, subscribe to, whatever, seem to step outside of a specific genre. That you can loosely classify them, but most of the time it's like this song is this song is this song is this, and I've always enjoyed that. So maybe letting maybe the question about genre then comes down to the specific track, and that's where you're explaining that to the recording dude, the recording dude hat.
Yes, and the problem that I keep seeing is that yes, it does. And a good thing about Bandcamp is, well, Bandcamp's a great example of where you can put in a whole bunch of genres you never fucking heard of, because you can just type them as hashtag commas. And also when you're going on Spotify and you're pitching a certain track to a degree, and also remember Amazon as well for pitching tracks, like it's number 3 right now, I think, as far as the most listened to kerfuffle and Tidal. You can, to a degree, choose what you're going. iHeartRadio, as I found out this week, who don't even count on the top 10, they will look for similar artists.
Mm.
And also Pandora do something similar as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, part of the reason I'm asking is because I'm starting another big push with Ice Planet 9000, and I'm sort of looking at this going, I don't know, is this Boolean school? Is it active ambient? What is it? Because some people are really specific about the genre. If you pitch it to somebody, like if you send it to a DJ or someone to play it on their podcast and you use hashtag new age, they're going to come back going, this is not new age, or this isn't something, or this has got a beat, an audible beat, so I'm not going to play it. Like they want to know specifics, and that sounds kind of intense, but I've encountered that kind of gatekeeping is the wrong word, genre specific requirements. DJs love genre. They love genre. And if you get the genre tag wrong with the DJ, they may not play it. They are looking for genre because genre is helping them put stuff in little boxes because their audience love little boxes. Terrifying fact, German audiences, oh my God. When I was in Germany, I'm sorry, Alex, I just noticed that there is a genre tag, and you have to adhere to that genre tag. Maybe it's because the industrial scene in Germany is so immensely gigantic. Gee, I don't know. But I've noticed in other countries like England doesn't care, Australia doesn't care, America cares a little bit. I digress. Rezi.
I don't know if I have a fully formulated thought on it right now, but there's something backwards about two things. Is there some merit to leaving off the established hashtag genres as much as possible and letting the associations and approaches speak for themselves? Maybe there's none, maybe there's a little. And also, do you really have to worry if the individual DJ vibes with that hashtag if you've chosen an aggregate set of 3 or 5 that are your signifiers? It's going to bounce some people, but I mean, is it like bullshit a little bit and tune them to every DJ, or stick with your ones that you feel comfortable with and blast away? Those two thoughts are weird.
At this point, I really wish Adam was in the conversation, because he's bringing up some great ideas. Adam, don't bother because we're about to close out, and we should pick this up next week.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Adam brings up the really important thing that another difficulty with naming a genre is that many artists don't just do one genre. Very, very, very true. I believe that it is important. From where I stand, I don't care. But the thing that I have found important is that, and Adam did say not all DJs in response to my shooting my mouth off about this, many DJs do, many podcasts do. So, and once again, with Angelspit, it's kind of easier, and this kind of ties into your question. Once the band is established, it has released stuff, the internet has figured out what a hashtag is for that thing, the audience has decided what a hashtag is for that thing, then it's an easy trick. For Angelspit, it's easy because I can say industrial, I can say cyberpunk, I can say all these words, but I don't say agrotech, and I don't really say EBM, and people aren't going to know what I'm... Yes, Diana, I can raid. You're the best. Thank you so much. And please, all of our health love is with you, Diana. The issue is that if it's a smaller band who does not have that digital footprint, you have to establish that footprint. You have to walk on a path to get to the point where you can start, or where you become known. And that path for bands is really, really, really hard, as I am discovering now with Ice Planet 9000. And it's a very good reminder of stuff. There's a lot of opinions in this one, and I would love to pick this up again next week because I do love this conversation. And yes, Diana, please call Adam. We're going to call it. And once again, all of our healing love to Diana. We're so glad you're out of hospital. We're so glad you're on the mend. Adam, we're sending you our healing love as well. Thank you for MTV TV. We're actually going to raid to MTV TV any minute. Diana has just bailed, but that's fine. Does anybody have any last minute thoughts? I sort of just cut the head off the snake a bit there. Okay, fantastic. Every weekend we are here. This is Art of Rock. Thank you for today. I got so much out of today. I came in here with opinions and they have been challenged. And I fucking love that about this stream. Every weekend, every Saturday, we're there on Angelspit's Twitch. Angelspit's Patreon, you guys keep me going. I want to keep you going. Jump on the Patreon. A lot of the content is free now. If you want to send me a $3 a month tip, I would be grateful. I would be really grateful. If you want more community around you, remember to check out Sounds and Shadows because it's awesome on Facebook. I want you to go to the Industrial Incisions playlist. I want you to go there because it is bloody awesome. There is so much good stuff there. Like it and subscribe it. Razi, again, thank you for being co-host with the most.
Always welcome.
You're the fucking man. I do also want to just send out a pimpage to Vulture Culture. if you've got a Wednesday night free and you want to deep dive into a synthesizer or a genre or a plugin, Vulture Culture on YouTube, it's really, really inspiring. And I'll tell you something else that's really, really inspiring, and that's MTV TV. We're going to raid our way over there right now. If you're watching on any of the other streaming services, that's where we're going. Click on that link. And if you run a stream, always raid to MTV TV afterwards, because they're the band. I just realized my hand's still up, which is kind of weird. So we raid now. That's us raiding now. And I'm going to put this over on the here on Instagram. Thanks for watching on Instagram. We're out of here. So come one, come all, and thank you. And I guess we can turn our mics off and we're going to chat. Bye. And we're going to leave the Zoom on. We're going to chat in the background. I think we're rating to MTV TV. Are we rating to MTV TV? God damn it. I fail at technology. Like I fail at it. Didn't I just say raid? I didn't say raid, you idiot. God damn it, I'm such a fool. I just put the address to Restream up there. Okay, I can do this. I believe in myself. So go to Restream because it's great. All right, we're going to try raiding again. Here we go.
That one
Endless
took.
fun. Let's raid. Are we raid? Yay! Raiding. There it goes. Not Restream, Carl, you idiot. Bye. We're done. You guys are fantastic.
Carl, I see your hand is up. Did you have something to say?
Yeah. I wanted to say that it's hot in LA and I want to make a roast.
Ooh.
It's like 100 degrees and I want to cook a roast. But
Don't turn on the oven.